bottom speakers have the same components with identical functions. In a smartphone speaker, there are 4 key components: a diaphragm, a voice coil, a magnet, and a spider. 4 additional components: 2 pull plates, the plastic case, and the front cover, provide uniformity for the magnetic field, structural support, and protection. Let's focus on the 4 key components and go over them in detail. The first key component is the diaphragm. It is a thin piece of rigid plastic that moves back and forth to generate sound waves. The diaphragm moves forward and compresses air particles, generating a high pressure wave, then moves backwards and generates a low pressure wave. The diaphragm can do this thousands of times a second, which creates cycles or an oscillation of high pressure and low pressure waves. These waves then propagate out from the speaker, and when this oscillation of high pressure and low pressure waves hits our ears, it is perceived as sound. The diaphragm creates these waves by moving back and forth, and what facilitates this movement is the second component, the voice coil. The voice coil is firmly mounted to the diaphragm, and it is constructed from a coil of insulated copper wire. The diaphragm and coil are positioned around the third component, the magnet. In a smartphone, this magnet is made of neodymium, which has a strong permanent magnetic field. Together, the coil and neodymium magnet act as a kind of miniature motor. When a current is applied to the coil, a magnetic field in the coil is generated or induced. The interaction between the coil's temporary magnetic field and the neodymium's permanent magnetic field cause the coil and the diaphragm to move. When the amount of current running through the coil changes, it also changes the shape of the coil's temporary magnetic field. This in turn changes the position of the coil and diaphragm. Thus, when a waveform of current like this is run through the coil, the diaphragm will move accordingly, and the pressure waves generated by the diaphragm will result in the corresponding sound waves. The fourth key component is the spider. This thin piece of flexible saran wrap-like plastic stabilizes the diaphragm and prevents it and the voice coil from moving side to side. The spider functions similar to the springs of a trampoline. Both the trampoline surface and the diaphragm are free to move up and down, but not side to side. The spider, similar to a trampoline, applies counteracting tension to the direction of motion, thereby returning the diaphragm to a central position. If the diaphragm and voice coil weren't stabilized, they could hit the magnets, resulting in both getting damaged.